Hi, this is Gary Audin, and I'm bringing you an EDUcast, Technology Enhancements for the Meeting Room, Recent Improvements in Audio Technology. It's sponsored by Revolabs and Telecom Reseller. With me today is Holger Stoltze. He's Director of Product Management at the Yamaha Group Revolabs. And as we do, we're going to talk about our agenda, what we're going to talk about today. And today is going to be a bit technical compared to some of the others we've done, but we're starting off with the challenges, the technical improvements, and then focusing on things like echo, noise, a term I think very interesting, the acoustic fence, how you deal with multiple microphones, speaker design, and sound absorption. So we're really covering a lot of aspects that if you don't know much about conferencing technologies, there's a lot more than just simply setting up a microphone. So let's start off, Holger, with what are the challenges we have to meet first before we start talking about the technology?
In the past, it was mostly a few meetings, large meeting rooms. Yes, you had challenges in these rooms, but you would really focus specifically on these rooms. You have one person really responsible for it. There's a person who comes in beforehand and sets up rooms. Meetings generally have completely changed. Today, we are meeting 3 or 4 times a day. We are getting together with 3 or 4 people in the building and then have people off-site, and then we have an audio conference or a video conference with them. The meeting room has changed. It's no longer the big room which has doors and everything else around it. It's either a very small room, or we're actually going these days into open spaces where you have what's called the huddle space and not the huddle room, which is open, which are other people are sitting around you, which are working on their desks, and you just have an area, a sofa, a few chairs in the middle, and you're having your meeting right there. So the challenges from an audio pickup, so what is being said, how does a microphone work, and how good is it to just capture the people who we really want to capture, as well as the speaker. So how do I actually get audio out so that it's being understood by these people who are part of the meeting, but does not disturb other people further out, or is not being listened to by other people further out. And then lastly, how do I really work with the audio? How do I process the audio? All of these things have changed over the last few years as part of this change of the audio, or of the meeting behavior.
I think one of the points that's really important at the bottom, what you just talked about, processing, is we don't want the audio to sound like you're in a room with a bunch of people. We want to be able to deal with the individual speaking and the individuals listening and block out everybody else.
Yeah, that's correct, and that's a picture down on the bottom right. Why that is a cafe. It could be the Starbucks around the corner, right? If you look at that, there are people sitting there. They are working, they are having conversations, and that is exactly, of course, that's the extreme, but that's exactly the problem which we are facing for audio in these meeting and huddle areas, is that there's so many other people around, so many other conversations going on. How do we focus on the conversation that is really important at that point?
One of the points I think is really important about collaboration communications today is we use the word anywhere, but there's 2 versions of the word anywhere. I could be anywhere in the world, but as in this picture, I could be also anywhere within the building. So almost any place can end up being a collaboration room.
That's correct. And as I said earlier, it's moving from, in the past we were more looking at the large rooms, at the boardrooms, at really large environments where it's important meeting and 20 people are coming together, and yes, there's somebody at the other end. Today, the meetings has really changed so much we are no longer just looking at the big room, we are looking at the small room, we are actually looking at the cafeteria, we are looking at the open space, and all of these rooms do now have the communication going on, and we need to improve the way how audio is being received and played back in these spaces and in any of these spaces. And the answer might not be the same for all of these rooms, right? If I go into an auditorium, I have completely different things to look at of how do I get enough volume back into the room, how many speakers do I have, things of that nature. While when I go into a huddle room, the biggest question, of course, is how can I capture everybody in the room?
When I think about the auditorium, and I remember in high school, we put a microphone up. If we put it too close to the speakers, we got this squealy sound. And that gets into that question of the full duplex and echo cancellation. Would you delve into that more for us?
That's correct. So the full duplex and echo cancellation really is a way of how do I get the signal which comes out of the speaker, out of remove that from what is being captured by the microphone. And correct, that is actually what really allows the full duplex in the conference phone, because I'm playing something back and I need to ensure that whatever's being played back does not go back through the microphone to the far end, because that would just mean I'm hearing myself, and now if I have a loop between the two conference phones, I would just get exactly that kind of squeaky sound. It really has to do with the processing power available. If you go back 20 years and you look at the processor, that processor was really working hard to get an echo out of a sound stream, and it was looking at the room and trying to do that holistically. Today, the processors 20 years later, you have Moore's law. You are, what is that, 1,000 times about faster from a processing power. You have more processing power behind it at the same cost. So actually, the processors have increased so much over that decade that we now can actually work more with the audio signal. We can do more things with it. And I'm bringing this up here in the first slide from the echo cancellation, but it actually is a reason for all of the other improvements which we will see afterwards in the next few slides as well. So with that additional processing power which I have, I'm actually now able to go in, and instead of looking at, in echo cancellation specifically, the audio signal holistically, I can actually go in and say, hold on, echo is different on low frequencies than it is on middle frequencies and as it is on high frequencies. And I can now actually say, hey, instead of looking at the complete audio signal, let me focus on the frequencies below 100 or 150 hertz and have some specific echo canceller running in that space. And then let me focus on the frequencies around 1 kilohertz and have a different echo canceller running there, because the audio at 1 kilohertz has less echo than the one at 100 hertz. And this capability of being able to really split up the audio signal and now being able to look at specific frequencies and getting the echo out in these specific frequency bands or octaves really improves the echo canceller, because I can focus on the frequencies which have a lot of echo and do not have to focus as much on the frequencies which have less echo in the room. So this also allows you actually to adapt to the room. So if you just move in the room, if one person in the room moves, you already have a change in the behavior in the room. If you put a hand close to the microphone of a speakerphone and leave it there for a second and you take it away, you actually twice change the complete behavior of the echo in the room. And with that ability to actually fix specific frequency bands very quickly actually allows you to get much better results today than you did 5 years ago.
Let's move on to another problem, and that's noise. And there's two kinds of noise. There's noise outside the system and noise inside the system. Would you focus on those?
That's correct. So looking at noise cancellation, the question really is, how do I get rid of noises which I do not want to bring over to the far end, right? So, and that can be in the room, it can be the projector who is running, it can be the air conditioning which is running, but it also is a car going by outside on the street and 10 people in the hallway in front of your meeting room having a loud conversation. The question really is, how do I get that noise out from the signal which I'm sending over? And the interesting thing here is really, instead of just trying to identify, oh, this is noise, this is 150 hertz or something like that, and I don't want that, algorithms these days are really going for the human voice activity detection. So instead of just saying, I'm trying to identify what is noise, this has shifted and is now saying, let me get what is human voice. And that is really what I'm interested in a conversation. And now, once I have identified what is human voice, it is much easier now to go ahead and say, this sound doesn't sound like human voice, so let's remove that. But again, it requires a lot more processing power to actually do that step up front instead of just doing a crude algorithm which says, that sounds like 150 hertz, let's just get rid of it. Why is this noise reduction actually more complicated than echo cancellation, which we had on the slide before? It's really in echo cancellation I have an advantage because I know what is going out on the speaker, and therefore I can immediately go ahead and say, okay, let me remove that. Now, the noise, I don't know what is noise and what is human voice, which I want to capture. So I really have to go and really identify this is important and that is not important without getting any reference signal which would tell me what is not important in the generic noise cancellation.
One of the things that I worry about when I'm in meetings is listening to people. Sometimes they're very loud, sometimes they're very soft, they're close to or far away from the microphone. That's called gain control. Would you talk about that? But also, the second term, which I think is fascinating, is your term acoustic fence.
Yes, so on the gain control, that is simply the way, very simple, somebody who's sitting further away from the mic, therefore his signal isn't as strong when it gets to the mic. You just go ahead and automatically gain, lift more or less the signal. And somebody who's sitting very close to the mic, maybe you actually trim it down a little bit because he's louder than other people. That works as long as you don't have a soft-speaking person sitting far away from the microphone, because now the question becomes, what is this? Is this a person who is still in the room and part of the conversation, or is that a person who is outside in the hallway, and that is why I get such a weak signal. So there is gain and trim does work up to a certain point, but as I just said, if you have that weak or that soft-speaking person far away, you have no idea anymore what that signal is. How much of part of the conversation is it, or how much is it not part of the conversation? The acoustic fence, I would have loved that would be our trademark. That is actually trademarked by Polycom. It's actually an idea of saying, hey, I have the meeting here. Why don't I put microphones around that meeting area? And now I actually use these microphones in a, I would describe it similar way as we do echo cancellation. So I'm actually using these microphones to find the sound which I do not want to transport over in the communication or in the conversation. So now I have actually the room where people are speaking. I can't change the microphone pickup, so I might still pick up the people who are next door and having a loud conversation over there. But because I have the acoustic fence, I actually now can understand what these people are saying, and understand and know that that's not part of my real signal, and therefore remove it from what I really want to send over from the conversation which is in the room. Now this makes it really an intelligent way of saying, hey, here is what's being said in the room, and even a person who is further away and speaking softly from the microphone is still in the room because he's not part of the acoustic fence and therefore not being removed from the signal.
You've talked about microphones, and you always seem to have multiple microphones around in larger rooms, but yet their placement varies in distance and where the people are sitting. How do you combine those signals together so they all sound good?
It's so there's of course several ways of doing that. You can just go ahead and have several microphones in the room and just mix the result together and be done with it. But what we're seeing more and more now in the field is actually beamforming microphone arrays. The interesting thing with beamforming microphone arrays is it's still a normal microphone more or less, which is just put into one enclosure, or several microphones put into one enclosure. And when I say several, that can be anything from 3 microphones to 120 microphones, which are in one of these enclosures. The idea now is actually that sound travels with about one foot per millisecond. If you actually get a strong signal on one of these microphones and you get it whatever a few microseconds later on another element of this microphone array, and then another few microseconds later on another element of the array, you can actually identify where that signal is coming from, what direction it is, and that is what's called the beam. So now I actually can focus on only signals which come with that difference in the time to the different elements, and I can simply remove or ignore any other thing which do not come with that time difference to the elements, because this sound must be coming from somewhere else in the room, not where the beam is focusing on right now. So with this beamforming, now I'm really able to say I'm only interested in sound which comes from this area, and therefore a microphone element can actually, or these beamforming microphones can actually start to ignore sounds which are coming from outside, which is the noise, the sound from the hallway conversation, and so on. The interesting thing with beamforming microphones is, do I have a dynamic beam where I'm simply saying, okay, I know where the people are in the room that are interested to me or where they will be speaking, so I simply put the beam statically into these areas, and I tell the microphones beforehand what areas to focus on, so what the time differences to expect in the audio signal? Or do I make it dynamically, where I'm actually saying that I have these 4 or whatever 20 or 100 microphones here in this beamformer microphone, focus or try to find out where the strong signal is, and once you have identified here's where the strong signal is, focus on that, so put the beam up into that direction. However, when you then realize that the strong signal comes from a different direction, start to focus your beam there and really be able to dynamically switch through the room and switch the beams based on where the strongest signal, where the talker is coming from at that point. So you really use all of these technologies now intermingled with each other to really get to the best signal.
You have a term on the next slide, which I have not heard before. Sound masking. What does that mean?
It's a technology that actually has been around also for quite a few years. The idea here is, so now we're talking about how do I ensure that other people aren't listening in, right? So I have my conversation here, and I don't want the person which is 3, 5, 10 feet away from me to listen in and hear what I'm saying. Sound masking really means that I'm introducing another sound source, and you will find that in offices of lawyers, something like that, where you have conversations which are very private. They have actually something, they switch it on, and now you suddenly have a white noise which uses the whole frequency spectrum of where human voice is, and they just add that to the room, which means you can still talk to the person who is just 2 or 3 feet away from you. But this noise now goes over the normal speech which you have, and somebody who is 5, 6, 7, or 10 feet away gets this distorted signal really, which is this white noise and what you're saying, and therefore can't understand anymore what you're really saying. So that the new technology is actually now looking into, instead of just pushing white noise in, which is all of these frequencies, let's do something which is less noisy and creates less sound, but actually still overlaps greatly the way how people speak. And how you do that is really you're using fragments of human speech, which are not a real sentence, which are not real meaningful, but the same phonemes which you're using when talking. And you're putting them together in a way, and you're just pushing them out through the speaker. That actually creates less of a noise overall. It sounds also like speech, even though it's meaningless, but it overlaps very nicely of what people are saying, and therefore still masks what people are saying. The problem with both of these is really that you're not limiting the audio output. Actually, you're creating more noise. So that works fine in specific areas, as at a lawyer or a doctor's office or something like that. It does not work when you are sitting in an office with 100 people around you. If you would put that kind of white noise sound into these rooms, you would just create a lot of noise. So it has its use cases, not necessarily in an office, not necessarily in a generic 100 room or 100 area.
You mentioned the word speakers, and I was thinking about the speakers when you're talking about the microphones, and the microphones being directional. The speakers can be directional as well, can't they?
Unfortunately, not really. So there are directional speakers which you can buy. and these speakers are trying to push the audio or the audio out really into one specific direction. And that works pretty well in higher frequencies, let's say about 1 kilohertz. The problem is with these speakers, however, is the low frequencies. I used a sample of subwoofer in your media room or living room. You can place a subwoofer anywhere you want. When the movie is playing and there is low frequencies, it just sounds right to you, even though the speaker is somewhere in a corner or somewhere, doesn't matter where you put it, because low frequencies are just traveling anywhere. They are breaking around any corner, and they live in the room forever because the echo is very long for these low frequencies. So if you try to put a directional speaker together, you either lose all of the low frequencies to get more directivity, and we have tried that. Actually, people usually come back and say it doesn't sound good. You are losing the richness of the sound if you're trying to do that. And I actually went ahead and I got that example from a speaker from Penphonics, where they actually put exactly that description. So I think they're using that for museums where people are standing in front of a specific exhibit and are looking at something, and they're saying, yes, that is great. So if you're staying here, you have great reception of what we are saying, and you will hear this fine. But what they're also saying is that there is an area which is 14 times as large as what you really wanted it to be, where people will still hear the middle and the low frequencies. So the directionality of speakers, unfortunately, does not work so far because of the laws of physics.
We've been talking about the technology of companies like yourself, but there's also the room that you put it in, and that has a lot of effect on the quality of sound and the ability of the machinery, the technology we're using, to compensate.
It's and the first image there is of an anechoic chamber. If you ever have a chance to go into one of these chambers, do that, but be aware that you will feel very uncomfortable in it, because anything you say, any sound you make is really being absorbed. There's no echo at all. And reality is we live in a world where there is a lot of echo, where there's a lot of sounds traveling around. We actually really expect sounds to travel and be reflected back to us. It's simply part of our life. So if you go into one of these rooms and all sound you're making is being absorbed from these walls and nothing comes back to you as part of an echo, you really don't feel very comfortable in it. Now, if you get into some of the rooms where you have too much of an echo, where your signal lives for a second and longer, you need to do something to control that. And what people do a lot is actually putting audio panels up, which are typically some kind of foam with fabric over them. And what they really do is they simply take some of that echo out, or absorb some of the echo which goes around in the room, and it's no longer echoed back. So this way they actually reduce the amount of echo and therefore the echoiness of the room. You have to be careful with that though. And one of the interesting things is that if you, again, just remove the echo, you actually, again, create an environment which might not be really comfortable for the listener. And there's actually something which is called echo controlling boards, which is very interesting. You are not just removing the echo, you're actually also adding echo when required. Meaning that if you look at the graph on the right, we have a room where without acoustic treatments, the echo is a little bit above where you want it to be. If you just put these panels in there, you actually remove a lot of the echo and you remove too much. But if you put one of the echo controlling boards in there, they actually create echo at some level as well to ensure that it feels comfortable for a person in the rooms.
Now, you've been in this business for quite a number of years as Revolabs, and I looked at this next page and I noticed you introduced the word video now because I've thought of you as an audio company. Would you talk more about that?
That's correct. So actually at Enterprise Connect this year we introduced the first video product for Revolabs and Yamaha. The idea here is Yamaha and Revolabs knows everything about audio, and we just talked about some of the technologies which we are working on, things which we are doing. And we are not going away from that. The way we are looking at video is just an improvement in the meetings which we have, right? So it is actually no longer just an audio meeting, it's an audio and video meeting. A video meeting without audio is what I call pantomime. A video meeting with audio, with good audio, is a real meeting which you want. So what Revolabs and Yamaha together have done is actually use a new product which now includes a camera. In that case, it's a very wide-angle camera for huddle room spaces, together with the audio technology that we just discussed, which actually has a lot to do with beamforming microphone arrays, getting the best echo cancellation into the product, and being able to produce the best audio experience in the room for people that are in the meeting as well as people that are at the far end of the meeting.
You have a catalog of products here that meet various conditions. Would you just pick out some of the ones you think are most important?
The ones which are really most important in our opinion these days is the ones which are the complete solution for the conference room. Being able to provide the best audio experience in the room, and not only the best audio experience, but also make it user-friendly. It cannot be the problem that people don't know how to start a meeting or don't know how to use the technology. So in our experience, or our expectation is that a product should be easy to use, having best audio for the solution the customer is looking for. So if we go through the audio devices which you see here, and you see our video device there as well, the whole idea is that all of them support these kind of algorithms which we just discussed, the kind of technology which we just discussed.
Would you match some of the products that you have to the rooms, types that we find?
Well, we try to be a solution for all problems at the end of the day, and we looked at the beginning at the building image with all of the different room sizes, and we do have products which go into any of these rooms. But it really becomes, if you go into an auditorium or a multi-purpose room or a large room, you're more worried about how many microphones can I get in, how can I actually manage these microphones. And this is going with our Executive Elite kind of products. When you go into a huddle space, the solution is a different one. I don't want any more 12 microphones or 20 microphones or 40 microphones in the room. I want to have one product which goes in there and which actually provides me the audio in and audio out. And our product roadmap and our product list really fulfills each of these different rooms, and we have specific products which will fit any of the rooms, any of the environments which you have, and really provides the best audio for your problems or your communication.
I'd like to point out to people that there's a phone number and addresses to go to for consultation and questions. There's the white paper on the right-hand side here, Sound Matters, that could give you more education. If you're interested in the products, contact Randall Lee, Director of Marketing at Revolabs, and I'd like to thank Holger for this very informative EDUcast.
Thank you.